Hello, I'm Izzy, and my online course Fabulous Free Motion is starting up again very soon. It's open for enrolment now and we start on Monday the 9th of September, but more about that in a moment. So I just wanted to let you know all about it and perhaps answer any questions you may have about it so that you can decide if it's something you'd like to do. So I've been teaching machine embroidery for about 15 years now, and I've had must be over 1,000 students to date, in person and online. So that's a lot of opportunities to observe what happens when you say to people, right, we're going to do some free motion now. And I've been able to look at the sort of struggles that people have when it comes to free motion, and it might be with the sewing machine, it might be with what to use, what threads to use, but a lot of the time it's about getting the sorts of results that they want. It's about getting those stitches where they want them to go and looking the way they want them to look. A lot of the time there's lots of these lovely books out there with projects, free motion, and just stitch this and just stitch this and voila, you have this beautiful thing. And for a lot of people it doesn't work like that. They might know how to set up their machine for free motion, but they still can't get it to look the way they want it to look, and it's frustrating. And so along the way I've also met a lot of people who will do almost anything to avoid it, or maybe even dismiss it and say, oh, it's not for me, or it's not real embroidery, almost like it's a cheat and that there's no skill because it's the sewing machine that's doing it. But that couldn't be further from the truth. So not only is free motion embroidery a fantastic way to express yourself in stitch, fabric, colour, it's also something that does require a bit of skill. And being brutally honest, that's probably why people might try it and then stop and say it's not for them, because that's easier, isn't it, than sticking with something, particularly at the beginning when you're learning. It's hard, there's no denying that. It is also a bit of a steep learning curve. But the good news is, because it's a steep learning curve, if you just get over that first step, the first hurdles to starting, if you know how to start properly, if you're guided well, you will improve really quickly. So I think this is probably why people never really truly get to grips with it, but it's also how you will make rapid progress once you start. And it's all about, I think, learning a few key skills right at the start, and these are things that I haven't really found sort of spelled out in any of those wonderful books about free motion or with the free motion projects that just dive in and say, oh, just do this and just do that. So for a long time now I've wanted to gather up all these observations from my years of teaching, all the little tips and tricks that I've developed along the way, showing people how to do this, teaching them how to be brave and how to improve, how to get better. And I wanted to create a course that could take someone from the very beginning, that stage of denial, if you like, that I can't do this, it's not for me, and guide them slowly, gently, but surely to the point where it clicks, where people get it, when you can realise just how fantastic it can be to master free motion. The clue's in the title, it's free. It means you can stitch anything wherever you like, but it's not just about those free wiggly lines like the vermicelli things. There's so much more that you can do. It's so exciting. There's textural things, there's 3D things that you can start to do. So this is very much a learning course. I'm going to teach you so many different things, but it's also a practicing course, which is why it's a long one. It's 10 weeks in all. But I also really truly believe that the best way to learn anything is when you're having fun. And because we're talking an arty crafty sort of skill, it's also got to look good. It's got to look beautiful. It's got to look colourful. It's got to look, it's got to look nice too. So while this is a learning course and a practicing course, and it's also not a project course, we're not going to make one finished thing. The lessons are delivered in lots of little projects. Each one, if you like, is like a mini project, and each one is satisfying to create, and it looks good, and you could stick it in a frame and say, that is a nice little piece that I have made. So I carefully designed each of these mini projects to teach a very specific thing and give you an opportunity to practice and also to create something that looks nice. And I've arranged them in an order that gives a natural flow of progression, so from learning to practicing all the way through, so that if you follow everything the way I have planned it, you will be taken very gently from that beginner stage through to intermediate and onto some really nice advanced fun things right at the end of the course. There's some really good ones in there. I just put in my favourites. So many good things. So the mini projects are then arranged in groups of 5. So 5 fits very neatly into a week, and then there's a few weekend tasks either to explore an idea further. There's a 1 or 2 little extra mini bonus projects in there, and there might be some preparation for the week that's coming up. And then these weeks are grouped into 3 levels. So there's 2 weeks of lessons for beginner, and then there's a rest week to practice, catch up, and then there's 2 weeks of intermediate level projects, and then there's another rest week to catch up, to practice, and then there's 2 weeks of the more advanced things, and then there's a very last week at the end where we bring everything together. I think I've thrown another couple of things in there, things that were just too good to leave out. I just had to include them. There's the blooper reel and all sorts of lovely things. So if you can't keep up with that format for any reason, there's absolutely no need to panic or think that this isn't for you, because the course, all of my paid courses come with lifetime access. So basically that means all the time I'm teaching online, you will have access to the material and to me. You can send me a message, send me an email if you get stuck, whenever that is. So if you want to stick with the schedule, with the 10 weeks, we're starting Monday the 9th, and we run through, I think it's sometime just after mid-November, by which time all the lessons are released. And so if you haven't been able to follow along, or if you can only do a bit at a time, that's when everything's going to be there for you, ready to jump back in whenever it suits you. So of course I might be wrong. There might be other people out there who are teaching these skills, and I've also spent years, a decade, taking the City and Guilds classes, and yes, I learned a lot of textile techniques and ideas for machine embroidery. I have got folders and books full of samples that I have stitched, but even though I was really well taught by one of the best teachers in machine embroidery around at the time, the thing that was never really discussed, it was sort of almost taken for granted, or that we would just work it out ourselves, was the quality of the stitch, with how each individual stitch looked. It wasn't ever really the focus. We just had to sort of cross our fingers and hope that our work got better over time, which it mostly did, but there are definitely some things it would have been good to know earlier on. And so I also teach in a different way to the traditional City and Guilds courses. So when I started learning, I didn't have the money for expensive materials and equipment. I still don't now, to be honest. I had to make do with what I could find, and so I've continued to create that way. I use a lot of second-hand fabrics and scraps, either salvaged from clothes or remnant bins. I also love collage in paper and fabric, and I am a huge fan of stitching on paper and using paper collage as a base for stitch. not least because I can avoid using a hoop. Now, embroidery hoops have their place, but they can be very awkward to use, and they're quite restricting too, and there's a lot of faff involved in getting the fabric tight, blah 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 blah, and then you've only got about that much space to stitch in. Boring. You have to move your hoop again. So I am convinced it's the faffing about, worrying about having the right equipment like hoops that puts people off trying machine embroidery. So I like working in a much more spontaneous way, using whatever I can get my hands on. So that's how I've designed the course. There is a little bit of hoop action in there, but not very much. So if that all sounds good to you, then you can find out more on my website. There is a link to the course information on the homepage of my website, or you can just click the tab on the top bar of my website for online courses, or if you're looking on a mobile, I think just click the hamburger menu. There's a link to my online courses there, and it will take you to where you can find all the course information. So if there's anything else that you want to know that I haven't mentioned, please just ask. Send me a message, send me an email, leave a comment wherever it is that you're watching this, and I will try my very best to help. The course information page, if you have a look all the way through that page, I've tried to describe what the course is like, what's included, and particularly if you look at the frequently asked questions at the bottom of the course page, there's answers to a lot of questions, and just click each one and it will open up, and I have written out as much as I can think of to try and help answer those questions so that you can decide if this is for you. If you are one of those people who's at that stage of denial, that sort of, well, I didn't really want to do free motion anyway, it's not my thing, it's not for me, my machine doesn't like it, well, I tried and it didn't really work, maybe just consider joining me on this course, and let's see if we can turn that around for you so that free motion embroidery becomes one of the most exciting things that you can do with thread and fabric. Okay, enough from me for now. Hopefully see you on the course. Thank you for watching. Bye. We have weeks 1 and 2, rest week. Week 4 and 5, rest week. 6, week 7 and 8, rest week, and then week 10 is the last week. You could see the maths going on there, couldn't you?